Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be doing a second round of the weekly update. It's been a little bit since I've made a video, but back now and just had some things to share about Milan as we are entering a very strange time. We just came off of the 1-1 draw with Sampdoria, which, while we played pretty terrible, it has greater implications because now top four does not really look that secure. I mean, the teams behind us are only behind us by a few points, so one or two games don't go our way, we slip out of the top four. And teams like Atalanta and Lazio, they're pulling off wins all the time. I mean, it's really us and Juve who are struggling, and with how we're playing, I would probably trust Juve to be able to outperform us eventually. So we really need to make sure that Atalanta, Lazio, Napoli even really slip up, because draws like this against Sampdoria, who did not really even play great, are really going to crush us in the future. And we desperately need Champions League, not only just for the own mentality of our club, but to keep some vital players and to keep progressing as a club and get us back to our glory days. I fear that another missed out season on Champions League would set us back incredibly far. So there's a lot of things to go through today. We'll go through what happened in the Sampdoria game, a lot of Pioli's tactics, and what he did during that game, and as well going forward. We'll also discuss the transfer market, the loans that we currently have in and what we should do with them, the players that will be coming back to us in the summer that we have had on loan, a lot of the renewals that are upcoming and have been very dramatic recently, and what I think we should do going forward in the summer mercato. So let's get started. First up is going to be the Sampdoria and Milan game, which just recently happened this past weekend. And as I mentioned, it was a 1-1 tie. Came down to an awful mistake by Theo Hernandez. Had a very, very lazy pass. It wasn't really to anyone. It wasn't to our defender. It wasn't to our midfielder. And Quagliarella snapped it up, and he does what he does, and he scored a great goal. Donnarumma was really not to blame. There's no way he was to expect Theo Hernandez to pass it to the opposition when he wasn't even being pressured. So really, that's just Theo's mistake. Our defense was solid, but to be completely honest, they weren't even pressured. I think we could have played any combination of our defenders, and we probably would have been just fine. Sampdoria was not really that great going forward. Our midfield seemed really tired. Benacer just seemed out of it. He was okay. I'm glad he's kind of back. I'm not sure I would have started him. I think I would have subbed him on and let Tonali start, since he was there all week coming back from an international break. He actually had time to train, and I'm just not sure why he would have started Benacer there. I get it that when Benacer is on form and he's playing great, he is our best, controlling midfielder there, but he hasn't been on form. He's just coming back from injury. He looked a little bit shaky, and I really would have just started Tonali and maybe brought Benacer off the bench. Either way, I don't think that was one of the reasons why we ended up tying, but it still would have helped us out. The bigger mistakes was that we had a anemic attack once again. It just seems like we've put so much emphasis, right after the January break, and that mercato on defense. Romagnoli sucks. Look how bad he is. When, to be completely honest, he has not been the problem. Yes, he's had some issues playing against Lukaku when he's been isolated on the left after Hernandez leaves him stranded. Everybody's going to beat Romagnoli in a foot race. It is what it is. So he just makes him look really bad when you get smoked one-on-one. And so a lot has been drawn to him saying, oh my God, look how bad this guy is. Yeah. We were doing absolutely fine prior to January, and we had Romagnoli for every one of those games. It's really ridiculous that people scapegoated onto him. Maybe he's not the best defender. He's not some world-class, top-notch defender we thought we had or we thought he was going to progress into. But he's still a very solid defender and would walk into most teams in the league. Even teams like Juventus are still looking at him. So he's fine. He's always been fine. He's maybe not your world beater, but he's a very good defender, and I just want to reiterate, he is completely a scapegoat. And while I do like Tomori and think we should sign him, I don't think that was really our big problem. If you look at what our problem is, it's all about the attack. It's about our strikers. It's about our wide play. The second Ibra went down and he was on very good form, we started tying games, losing games. We could barely put the ball in the back of the net. And so it made it look bad when we get scored on once or twice because we just couldn't bury. And that's really what's been happening. Our wide play is really bad as well. If it's not Rebic on that left wing, we just don't look good. Leao has had some sparks here and there, but Theo Hernandez plays a far better game when Rebic is in. So that's our left side. And our right side, every once in a while, Castillejo and Salamakers will show some class and quality, but they're just not starter material in my opinion. Neither of them are. They both work very hard. Salamakers fits our team a little bit better, but they're not top quality. They're not starting right wingers. I mean, we really missed the boat going for Kessie. I get that he was expensive, but he's a world-class talent and will become a top player for years to come. That's the type of player you can invest that money into. And we are really paying the price for just bringing in a bunch of subpar to average players over the past several seasons and having to deal with having them on our books. So playing a Castillejo, playing a Salamakers, and having, playing Krunic on your left-hand side is just ridiculous. I mean, they're not going to do anything. The only thing they're going to do is perhaps try to cross to Ibra sometimes, but they're never going to give the defenders another look, cut inside, do something, create a nice 1-2 with Çalhanoğlu, or do anything of the sort. And then Ibra was just a little bit sluggish too, so I'm not sure what we expected to get out of this game. I really think that there was a bad starting lineup decision from Pioli. I think he did a really poor job in this, and I'll talk about that in a second here. But perhaps the worst thing for me that was very, very disgusting was the lack of effort. I just didn't see anybody fighting for the shirt. I mean, even guys like Kessie, who you can always rely on, just seemed sluggish. And I get it, he's probably tired after playing a lot of games, but you got to realize these games are so important, and these games against Sampdoria and all these kind of small to medium teams are actually even more important than playing against the big teams right now. If you walk away with 3 points against all these teams like Udinese, Sampdoria, and all these ones right now for the rest of the season, we definitely are top 4. Regardless if we tie against Juve or lose against them or tie Napoli or do something like that. We needed to win these games because now when we go play against these big teams, it's going to really matter if we tie or lose to them because they're going to swap places with us. So this is really, really poor. The lack of effort is really, really gross to see. And bar a couple guys, I would say our defenders, maybe Fikayo Tomori, everybody else looked pretty dang bad. I mean, I can't say that a single player looked solid today. Donnarumma was good. He made some nice stops. He seemed into it and up for the game. And our 2 center backs, that's it. Such a bad lack of energy. And I did, comment on a certain post. I listened to a couple podcasts and whatnot of Milan fans, and I commented on one specifically saying that, it's your job to play. You are blessed. You have this wonderful position in the world to be able to play a game, to play a sport for your life. Your overall contribution to society, besides giving everybody joy and happiness, is really nothing. You don't do a job that's useful for people or something like that. So you have a wonderful, wonderful, blessed position that every one of us would be killing for, to be in that position, to get paid millions of dollars to play a game that's incredibly fun. So work hard. At the very least, work hard. It is your job to stay in shape, to be up for every game. Yes, you can have a one-off or two-off games here and there that you're a little bit tired, but a consistent thing, or playing even a third of the games tired or even a fourth of the games tired, is just wrong. There should be a maximum handful per season, maximum, and we're doing it far too often. It's been a bit rough, and if we continue like this, as I said, top 4 is going to fade. So let's get into some of the things that Pioli had done tactically, what I think he should have done with lineups, and where we should have gone from here. So our starting lineup, we had Donnarumma, Theo Hernandez, Tomori, Kjaer, Salamakers at right back, Kessie, Benacer, Çalhanoğlu, Krunic at left wing, Castillejo on right wing, and Ibra up top. A proper lineup, which is what, if you were going to stick with the 4-2-3-1, is you should have had, a similar back line, but your right back should have been either Dalot or Kalulu, and that would have moved Salamakers up to right wing, who he's played there and he's actually beneficial and has a much better connection with our attacking, group there than Castillejo does, as he just hasn't been that great so far. And the other thing is, our left wing, I think, was even more of an issue. Why did you start Krunic there? Yes, Krunic has had a couple very good games recently, but none of them have been at left wing. When he's played the good games out of position, he's played them in an attacking midfield role. He's a bit more stout, but he's actually still pretty technically good. He has pretty good vision, and he's better in the middle of the pitch. Why? He's not fast. He can't beat his man out wide. So why are you playing him out wide there? Every time Krunic is on left wing, he's terrible. There's nothing he can do about it. You're just putting a player in a really out of position spot. If you want to run Krunic, put him in the attacking midfield spot over Hakan if Hakan's playing terrible. It is what it is. If Rebic is healthy enough to start from the bench, he's healthy enough to start the entire game. I don't care what Rebic says, what's going on in training. You tell him to get his butt out there. He is being paid a lot of money to play. He's fine. He injured his elbow. It's not like he injured his knee or stuff like that where you can't run or play the game. It's his elbow. You can play the game with a bad elbow. And honestly, I don't even know if that's what it was, because he got suspended for 2 games and then it was reduced to 1 game. So I'm really not sure what Rebic was dealing with. Either way, you're good enough to start from the bench, you're good enough to start the game. There are very select times that that's not the case. Like when Benacer was coming back from a big injury, yes, you want to bring him on for a few minutes. Rebic was fine. He should have played. That being said, if he wasn't fine and if he was nursing a very serious injury that we just didn't know about, then it should have been Hauge. Hauge is an actual left wing. He can play attacking mid too, but he's an actual left wing. So why not play him there rather than Krunic? So truthfully, what we should have ran was we should have put Dalot or Klulu at right back. Right wing should have been Salamakers, and left wing should have been Rebic or Hauge. That would have been a much better starting lineup and given Ibra a lot more opportunities to actually capitalize on some chances, whereas we didn't really create much at all until the end of the game when Rebic was actually in. My suggested lineup personally, though, is I would just eliminate the wings right now. I've been saying this over and over every time I make a video. Right now, the weakest part in our team is our attack, and it's our wingers. We do not have good wingers. When Rebic is in, we have one good winger. That's it. Even Leao is very inconsistent out there. So why are we playing with this? Why not go to a... I know people are a little scared about going to the 3-4-1-2. Okay, fine. I'll talk about that later. But if that's too scary to do, which is ridiculous to me, then do a 4-3-1-2. You keep the 4-man back line, you keep 3 people in midfield, you actually get to add Tonali to that mix in his classic deep-lying playmaking role, where he played for Brescia and where he's looked excellent, and then you eliminate the wings and you add a good cohesive core in the middle with Hakan, Rebic, and Ibra up top, and that I think it even benefits Leao if Leao can play up there, because him playing off of Ibra is going to be very, very good, because he's closer to goal, can score, but he doesn't have to actually play as that striker. He can play more as that center forward role. So I would have actually run it. Teo Hernandez, Tomori, Kyer, either Dalot or Klulu at right back, Tonali as the deep lying D mid, Kessie, Benacer as your center mids, Hakan as your attacking mid, and then you run Rebic, Ibra up top. That's it. That's exactly what I would have run. It eliminates the need to play Krunic out wide. It eliminates the need to play Castillejo over there. Just forget about that whole thing. So I think Pioli's really missing an opportunity here to change up his formation. He has stagnated completely. He was good early on at changing the formation up from the Gianpaolo formation and switching it to eventually find this 4-2-3-1, which I actually admitted that I thought that was the best formation for us at the time, and we found it. But it's like he doesn't even have one more formation in his back pocket, which is really, really basic stuff. And on top of that, even if he can only play one formation, he didn't even select the right lineup. So I'm not sure if he's just playing scared right now, but anytime you are scared as a manager and you're just trying to hold on, you're going to fail. It's going to happen. We don't have the type of team that's just going to stay stout and hold on, right? We need to keep changing, keep adapting, keep pushing people, and that's what Milan was doing early on in this season. We were just a train going forward, and now we're kind of playing this prevent game, and it's not working for us. So Pioli's got to mix something up sooner rather than later, because the second it's too late, it will be too late. I do not believe in our abilities to catch up and rejoin 4th place once we lose it. So we can't lose it. We've got to hold it right now. Our next few games are not against massive opponents. We need to come out and win these games. He has to put his best players out in the best positions, and we need to come out strong. There is no waiting. There's nothing like that. We need to be on them from the first 20 or 30 minutes. We need to get a goal early and keep shoving forward. That's how this Milan works, and they win. When we push it to the second half, we do terrible. All right, so now let's move more into the transfer markets, which we'll talk more about the loans, renewals, different players that we're considering for summer. So let's start with the loans. We're going to start with Sandro Tonali, who's loaned in. We've already paid probably, I think it's like 10 to 15 for the actual loan. So it's, I believe, an equivalent amount to actually redeem it. So we're definitely going to be redeeming Tonali, and I think that we should. He's been thrown in very early into a very important position on the field. And while initially he was a little bit shaky, he's definitely come into his own, and he's been improving game after game after game, which is a very good sign. And so I think that he's going to do fantastic. If you actually think about it, he's done better in year one than guys like Kessie did. Kessie had been really bad for us for the past several years. This year, he's been a revelation, has been amazing. I'm very glad that we kept the faith in him, because he's repaid that now, and he's showing that he can be a top-class player, especially when you remove a lot of his attacking jobs, his attacking duties, and you make him more of that kind of pure DM-CM role, and he gets forward sometimes. That's really where I think Kessie always should have been, and I'm glad that he's playing that way now. Next up is going to be Fikayo Tomori, and I think this one's pretty easy. I've always said wait, and see if you should sign him, because he may look good initially, but give him some games. And Maldini has done exactly that, and I'm very, very happy for that, because Tomori has shown each game now that he's been pretty dang solid. Yes, he has not been very good at aerial marking. In my opinion, he was one of the massive reasons that we were eliminated from the Man U Europa League tie, because he left his marker in game 1, which was 100% on him. But his ground marking is excellent, his pace is excellent, and he's proven he can play with Romagnoli or Kyer very easily, and he actually ups their game. So it's actually excellent. I think we definitely sign him. Of course, you try to get him for cheap or do what you can, but even if we can't, I think that for a player like that at 28 mil, I think that's actually a good price for a strong defender who fits a style that we need and that complements all of our other defenders. I mean, I feel confident you could run Tomori with Gabbia, Romagnoli, or Kyer and be completely fine. And I feel very strong with those 4 center backs going into next season. I actually feel like that's really all we need as far as center backs go. We could use maybe like a 5th deputy or a youngster like a Matteo Lovato or something like that, but I would be totally cool with running with those 4 in the next season. Diogo Dalot, I think he's excellent as a backup left back. He's been average as a backup right back. Sometimes he's actually been bad. For 20 million, it's definitely not worth it. If we can come much lower and get under 15, get closer to 10-ish, then I think it's actually worth it. But if it's not close to 10-ish, then I would say no, we can find somebody else. We can bring somebody in who's a solid player like a Paolo Giglioni or something like that. Somebody who's not going to cost us a lot of money, and who will be a very, very solid deputy. So I think it's really only we sign him for a very discounted price, as 20 or so million is really way too much for a player like Dalot. I like that he can play both sides. He's pretty good going forward and into attack, which if we did switch to a 3-4-1-2, he would be an absolutely excellent deputy to Teo Hernandez, and I think he would even be better on the right side and be a solid backup to Calabria because he wouldn't have as many defensive duties. So once again, only sign him for a discounted price. Brahim Diaz, we're looking to maybe extend his loan. I would say this time try to put an option to buy in there just in case he does very, very well. I think that's probably the best option for him, because I think Diaz is going to be going for 25 mil, which in my opinion is way too much for Diaz. He hasn't had the impact that like a top class or a person who can take over the game as attacking mid can have. So I don't think that we should redeem him for that price. If we can get him down very, very low, 10, 15, which probably won't happen, then it may be worthwhile. But I think the best thing might just be to extend his loan and maybe consider adding an option to buy in case he plays fantastic. Swalio Mete, I think his redemption is around 8.5. I think we paid around 500 to $1 million for the initial. So it'd be somewhere around like 10 million with bonuses, 10 to 11 or something like that total. I would not sign him. He hasn't shown me anything that says we should spend 10 to 11 million on him. We're going to be bringing back Pobega next season, and he's free. So why would we pay 10 million for Mete when we need every ounce of that money to invest into a top quality player? You start tossing 5 mil here, 10 mil here, 15 mil here, you wind up with a very, very average team. Milan has a good core. We only need 2 to 3 top class players added to our mix to actually have a great team. We really need to be gone with the kind of, okay, let's buy an average depth player. Hey, let's get an average depth player here and there and there. And then you just have average depth players and no top class players. So I really don't want us to do that again. It's happened a lot in the past with us, and so I just don't want to see us do that anymore. So I would not sign Mete unless there's something remarkable happens in the past few games of the season, but I don't think he's worth it. Mario Mandzukic, I really would not sign him at this point. I mean, unless something magical happens, kind of like with Mate or something in the end of the season, he plays fantastic, and we just had to, repay his salary, or if we can negotiate it a dash lower because he'll be a year older. He didn't really play much already, so if we can negotiate his salary lower and he plays excellently the past few games here, maybe we can consider him as like a backup option. But otherwise, if it's a pretty high salary, I don't think it's worth it. So that's the loans there. Next, we're going to move on to a kind of a very important topic, is a lot of the renewals, which has probably been the hottest topic around Milan recently. The 2 that have to be done this year are Donnarumma and Çalhanoğlu, as they can both leave on freeze, which is just bad. Milan is getting ourselves into these situations every year where there's some big player who's going to be probably leaving on a free, and it's just really not a good way to look. The players we're also considering renewals for are Romagnoli, Kessie, and Calabria, who will be on a free next year. And so I really think that they're just as important to make sure those deals get worked out this year so we don't run into this issue next year, especially with players that have sellable value. A lot of people are like, yeah, well, don't renew Donnarumma, don't renew Çalhanoğlu because, if they want that much money, they're not worth it. And honestly, I agree. I don't think that they're worth the money that they're asking for salaries, neither of them. I think Çalhanoğlu was asking for like 6 or 7, which is just nuts, but he might sign around 4 or 4.5. If he signs for 4.5, I think that's fine. I don't actually think he's worth that because for 85+% of the time he's been with us, he's been average to below average. He's only played fantastic for a few months, and I'll admit he did play excellent for those few months, but that's all you're going to get out of him. But the reason why I would sign him is because his value is 25 or 30 million or so. And so even if you pay him 4.5 million or even 5 million, which is, a few million higher than what he makes right now, yes, we have to pay him a couple more million, like 2.5 or so million, but he's going to get you back 25 or 30 million if you sell him. And I do think that we actually could look to sell him this season, next season or so. And it makes so much more sense to get that money for his transfer fee rather than let him go for free where we just save a couple million a year. So overall, we really need to sign him, and even more so Donnarumma, because one, Donnarumma could become a club legend. There's still that possibility. Two, he's worth a ton of money. He's one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the world right now. He's still young, has a ton of caps, is already the starting goalkeeper for the Italian national team, and probably will be for the rest of his life as long as something doesn't happen to his form and he crashes all of a sudden, and becomes bad, which I don't think will happen. So his value, if he wasn't, on his last year here, would be like 60+ million or at least 50, something incredibly high, And so I don't really think that you can afford to lose that. Should he be bumped from 6 to 8? No, he really shouldn't be. But I think we have to do this because even if we pay the extra 2 million, you're paying an extra 2 million a year for him, true. But if in 1 year, 2 year, things are getting bad and you want to sell him for 60 million, well, so you paid an extra 2 million for 2-3 years. So you wasted 4 to 6 million, but you just made 60 million. That seems well worth it in my opinion. I think anybody's opinion. And if we renew him at 8 and he ends up staying, he does fantastic. He becomes the number 1, number 2 goalkeeper in the world, which he definitely has potential to be. That's kind of what they're being paid anyways. So it kind of is what it is. I know that he's young. He shouldn't be demanding this much. It's not really becoming of a person who's kind of being groomed for a captain role to already be asking for the salary. If he says he loves Milan, he should show it right now. So I really don't like that. But financially, we can't afford to not renew him. It would be really devastating for our finances if we let both him and Çalhanoğlu go this summer because of improper management. Romagnoli, Kessie, Calabria, they're all going to want increases in salary, and I think that it's fine. The only one that shouldn't really be getting an increase is probably Romagnoli. If he does get an increase, it should be very mild. Yes, he's been one of our best players every season for the past several seasons. That's true. He's had a bad half season, and people gave him way too much flack, and now he's a very hated player by so many people, and it's really unnecessary and too far in my opinion. For his life, he'd probably be better leaving, and he'll probably do excellently at a different club, but I would like to keep him because 1, I think he's still very useful for us. 2, if we switch to a 3-man back line, he's going to really thrive. And 3, once again, if we sell him, he's going to make us a lot of money, 30 million or so, because he is one of the better defenders out there. And just paying a couple more million in his salary is really, once again, not worth it. So I do think that it's a similar situation to our other players. Donnarumma, Çalhanoğlu, you got to sign him so we don't run into this issue. If we want to sell him in the future, okay, fine. At least you make a lot of money off that transfer fee. Same thing with Kessie, whose renewal is coming up, and same thing with Calabria. They're all worth good value. If it was somebody like an Andrea Conti or somebody like a Diego Laxalt or somebody like that who you could maybe only get a couple million from their sale anyways, then it doesn't matter if they renew. These players though that have 10, 20, 30, 40 up to $60+ million in transfer value, you need to sign them so you can, if you do sell them, you actually make some money off of them, or you keep them and they stay very good players. So those are the renewals. Those are my thoughts on that. Players returning in the summer, you've got Diego Laxalt, who's playing for Celtic right now, and there's been rumors either way that they want to keep him, they don't want to keep him. I hope that they keep him. I'm hoping that he plays very, very well the next few games, so they do keep him. I think it would be somewhere around 10. I'm not sure if it's just under or so, but that would be great if we can make that sell. If not, then we probably would just sell him. Worst case scenario, he plays with us for half a season as Deputy Teo, which is not the worst option, but I would prefer selling him for around 10 anyways. Andre Conte, I believe, is going to be $8 million to Parma, but that's only if they don't get relegated, and right now, it's looking like they're going to get relegated. So Conte is somebody who I think after his injury is just completely done. I don't think that with enough time he's going to become a very good right back anymore. It's possible that he could play back up to Calabria and become a good player again, but I don't know. I would actually just prefer to sell him. I'm hoping Parma moves out of the relegation zone, but if they don't, we should probably try to sell him to a different team for a similar fee. Tommaso Pobega is coming back, which is completely fine. I think that we're all planning on him being a depth signing, which is not going to cost us any money. It's just he's our player already. So that'd be nice to have a free player who's solid, has had a nice season already, and can play in the center of mid. And the last one is going to be Mattia Caldara. This is the one that I was very upset at how we structured our deal with Atalanta for this exact reason. We put all the chips, all of our chips down and gave every decision to Atalanta and just said, oh, please, Atalanta, we'll do whatever you want. We essentially just bent over and took it from Atalanta. I don't know why, because we established Atalanta as the better, more dominant team, and Milan has a ton of history. We should never be negotiating like that. We essentially gave them a cheap loan and said, you have an option to buy. That's completely fine. If he doesn't perform well, send him back. If he performs great, you can buy him for 15 mil. That's ridiculous. If Mattia Caldara performed well and where he was at prior to his injuries, he's a $30 to $40 million defender because he was amazing. He was actually one of the best defenders in Serie A for a little while until his injuries happened. So if he was good again and performed at that level, we would be selling a $30 to $40 million player for 15 mil. Terrible deal. And if his injuries keep him back, which they seemingly have done, and he doesn't rediscover that form, then they're just going to send him back, and we don't get any money for him. So the deal we made with Atalanta was a lose-lose for us, and what's happening right now? We are losing from this deal. Now, there is the possibility that Caldara comes back, and we've seen it with other players. Once they get past a certain injury after a little while, they become very good again. It's possible that he could actually become a great player again. It's possible. I don't think it's as likely because he didn't do well this year at Atalanta, but it is possible he becomes a great player again and he can step in. Whether that's as a backup for us, whether that could be eventually as a starter in a three-man back line, who knows? Or we just consider finding him another team and selling him, but that's definitely the most interesting one. The other option, and something that I may consider, is trying to maybe include him in a deal for a different player that we're interested in particular, Matteo Lovato. Lovato's price, I believe, they were thinking somewhere initially around 15 or so, probably bumped to 20 because he's played very well this season. But if we used Caldara in a deal like that, paid a couple million, gave him Caldara and took Lovato, that seems like a very nice purchase for our back line and gives us a lot of stability. If we walk into next season and we've got Lovato, Tomori, Kyer, Romagnoli, Gabbia, and as an absolute backup Kalulu, that's really solid. We don't have to touch our center backs for a long time. So that's going to be the interesting one, is Caldara coming back. Next year, we're going to move on to kind of new targets, different potential signings, go through a couple links, and then I'll kind of say what I think we should do with them. So we'll start at the front. Striker links, we've got Belotti from Torino, Dusan Vlahovic from Fiorentina, Daniel Malin, I believe plays for PSV, Darwin Nunez from Benfica, Gianluca Scamacca, who has a couple. I think he's owned by a couple of different teams. I think he's owned by Sassuolo, but he's playing for Genoa. Memphis Depay and Sergio Aguero. Two of those are actually on freeze, which would be Depay and Aguero, and I do think we should actually pick up one of those. I would prefer Depay. I think that he is at a proper age for us. He's ready, and he can play a couple different positions. He can play attacking mid, center forward, or striker, or out wide. So no matter what formation we run, he'd fit it. It's just a matter of does he want to come here, and I think without Champions League, we don't get Depay or Aguero. So I would like to pick up, either one of those players, one of those two on a free, which would be great. And then one of the striker options that we've listed there. And I've got my personal preferences are for either Belotti, Vlahovic, or Scamacca, but they're all good links. Nunez is very unproven. I don't think that's the target that we go with right now. But who knows? He could be, an awesome player in a year or two and really surprise us. Those are our striker links. Then we move back to the wingers and attacking mids. We've got Riccardo Orsolini, Nikola Vlasic, who's an attacking mid. We've recently been linked with Kavica Kvaratskhelia. He's a Georgian attacking mid type of player in case Hakan leaves. Mattia Zaccagni, who has been playing with Hellas Verona and who has had a very, very good season. I think he'd be a really good option as he can play attacking mid, or he can play out wide, or as a center forward. So once again, kind of very similar to a Memphis Depay in that he's actually versatile and kind of entering his prime years as well. And then there's Jonathan Ikone from Lille, who can play out wide primarily on the right wing, who would be a decent option if we stick with a 4-2-3-1 as a Castillejo replacement. Those are pretty much our options for those slots. It really depends on formation that we are going with, but I personally would probably, of those names, I think Zaccagni is probably the best name of that list because he's versatile, he's ready, he knows the league, he's entering his prime, and I just think he would be a very solid upgrade for us, who we really wouldn't lose much, and he would give us an option no matter what formation we play, which not a lot of those options right there can do that. They're all kind of locked into their positions. One that I think that we actually should get that we're not linked with, if we stay with the 4-2-3-1, my top choice is actually Domenico Berardi. He's ready to go. He's a team leader. He knows how to actually put balls in the back of the net, which is something we're missing from our wingers, is they don't have high goal production, and that's something that Chiesa would have given us. And so that's why I think that it's important to pick up Berardi over any of these links if we stay with a right wing kind of based 4-2-3-1 formation. If you have Berardi on the right, Rebic on the left, Ibra up top, and either we keep Akan or we have Zaccagni in the middle, or even a guy like Castrovilli as our attacking mid, that's a very strong four-man attack. I feel very confident in that attack, especially if you bring in another striker who, when Ibra's not there, can either start over Ibra, or Ibra starts a game, doesn't matter, but we have to pick up a good quality striker like the ones that we're looking at. So that to me really fixes our attack, but we'll see what we end up doing. Midfielders, Pobega, of course, will be coming back. We're also looking at Matthias Vanberg. We're looking at Albert Sambi Lakonga. One that I added on here just because I like him, but we were linked with him only once back in winter, is actually Jordy Shelton. I feel like he'd be a very reasonably priced option, and I don't know, every time I see the kid play, I think he's awesome. He's really well balanced. He's very calm, collected. He plays strong. He's a good tackler. He's a very good distributor of the ball. He's smart positionally. I think that this is actually one of the most underrated talents in Serie A, and I believe that this is the type of player that a good manager, a good player scout would actually be able to find and say, you know what, we're going to snap up a deal for this guy that nobody's looking at, and he would really give us a good benefit in midfield. So we will see. But I can't really say that's a true link, as there has not been any heat with that one recently. That was just kind of a very old link from winter transfer market. Center backs, Tomori, we're going to be redeeming him, I believe. We're still linked with Milenkovic, still linked with Lovato here and there, but I don't think we need to actually do too much in our center back department. If we sell Romagnoli, then we might be looking back at Milenkovic and Lovato. If we don't, we might not even consider it, but we could take up that other option of maybe considering selling Caldara for a swap with Lovato or something like that, or trying to reduce the price. So we'll see what ends up happening there, but as long as we redeem Tomori, we don't really have to worry too much about the center back department there. We could fine-tune it, but we don't need to make any massive switches. So what do I think we should do in the summer mercato? I think there's two options we go with. If we stay with the 4-2-3-1, I would personally, so obviously re-sign Donnarumma. You have Teo. If Dalot can be bought for a much cheaper price, like kind of between 10 and 15, I think that we get Dalot. He can be the backup Teo because he's way better at left back than he is at right back. We have Tomori and Kjaer as our starters, who can alternate with Romagnoli and Gabbia based on games and whatnot. I think that Gabbia is just going to keep getting better and better, and Romagnoli has only been bad for a half season, so he's very well capable of starting. So I think that's a very solid 4. You're going to have Caldara as your kind of 5th, but as I was considering selling him to Verona and getting a guy like Lovato. So I think that's a very excellent center back core. And if you need somebody because we're a very injury prone team and something else happens, you've always got Kalulu who can play there. Then at right back, obviously Calabria is a starter. You might want to consider a guy like a Paolo Giglione, who'd be pretty cheap and is pretty solid. He delivers a very great cross And then you still have got Kalulu as your backup and Salamakers as a emergency option if necessary. So I think that we're actually pretty covered there. If we pick up a guy we don't need some top-notch player there. We just need, I think, a guy like Paulo Guglielmo is actually perfect for us. In midfield, you've got Kessie and either Benacer or Tonali based on who's playing better. There is that option that we actually sell Benacer for 50 million, which is actually not the worst option if Tonali can keep playing well, but I would personally keep him for right now, just because we need that stability in midfield, especially if we switch to a 3-man mid. We're going to want Kessie, Benacer, and Tonali all on the field at the same time. We should be bringing Pobega back, and then as far as a vice Kessie, I know Pobega can do it a little bit, but I don't mind the link with Lokonga, and I really do like Jordy Shelton. I hope that we actually go for something like that. I don't necessarily think we will, but either one, if we got either Lokonga or Shelton, I would be pretty happy with that midfield core. For attacking mid, I think we should re-sign Hakan for that and actually consider selling him unless he starts playing great. I just don't think that he's the type of guy to take you to the next level. I think he's very, very average. He has some games that he plays great, but most games he's either average or a little bit below average. I think it'd be nice to pick up a Mattia Zaccagni or a Gaetano Castrovilli. I think we look within the league there. If we want a pure attacking mid, it's going to be Castrovilli. If we want a more versatile option, that would be Zaccagni. And then going forward, if we're sticking with the 4-2-3-1, I think Berardi is the ideal option. I think that's where we spend some of our money. And then Memphis Depay would be ideal as he is free, so we're just paying salary. I think that's a great option for us. It immediately increases our quality, it immediately increases our star power, which helps a lot. And then for attack, I think Belotti is probably the top option for us right now. He seems to be going to be a very reasonable price, especially if Torino gets relegated, which it doesn't look like right now, but they're pretty dang close, so that may be ideal if that happens. My next top choice is actually Scamacca. I think he's excellent. Every time I see this guy play, he's got style, he's got class. He's a type of player who's always trying hard, fighting hard. He's strong. He's actually really technical and quick for his size. I think he's going to be absolutely excellent. And in my opinion, if teams don't snap him up right now, his value over the next few years is going to skyrocket. And I'd rather be on the early, kind of on the early watch for that and snap him up now, rather than saying, ooh, let's look at him now once he's, 40, 50 million or something like that. So if we don't get Belotti, I would like Scamacca. My third choice, who I think is also excellent, is Vlahovic. Vlahovic is a type of guy who I think is about 1 year ahead of Scamacca. And I think that's kind of where I would like to see us pick up Scamacca, because his value is probably going to be around 15 to 20 million, so we buy him now. Whereas Vlahovic's value last season was probably around 20 million. Now he's played great this season, especially past the midway, and boom, his value skyrocketed to 40. So I think that if we're willing to spend 40, we go with Belotti, maybe Vlahovic. But if we can't spend that money, Scamacca is a great option for half the price. And I think that he could very easily, in a good team like this, playing underneath Ibra, who's literally plays in a very similar style to him. So he's like the ideal person to train under for Scamacca. So I really think that if you have him play with Ibra, learning from him, and have him play with good teammates who are going to be surrounding him, he's going to skyrocket and have a fantastic season. So that's actually secretly my top choice would be Gianluca Scamacca for us. My second choice would be Belotti. My third choice would be Vlahovic. I'd be pretty happy with almost any of our forward links. They're all good players, but that would definitely be my top three in that order. If you look at this from a financial point of view too, the investment made is really going to be in the redemption of Tomori, which would be 28, and then you have Berardi, and then our striker. That's it. So there's really three positions, and they're very, very important because Depay is going to be free. So although he's going to be on a high salary, if we get him, that is a free transfer. You can use a lot of the money from selling our kind of smaller players, whether it's like a Andrea Conti, Diego Laxalt, stuff like that, to kind of combine and buy Zaccagni. If we go with a guy like a Castrovilli, that's going to be more expensive for attacking mid. But Zaccagni's value, I think, was between 15 and 20. So that's not going to be an incredibly expensive option. So overall, the investment here is not going to be that crazy. It's going to be somewhere around that 100 million total, and that's not including a lot of sales. So I think that that's actually a very, very reasonable team that we could put together that gives us depth. It actually upgrades our quality, and by upgrading quality, it gives us depth. That's the way I'd rather do it. Upgrade your starting lineup, give yourself quality so then your depth is actually good, rather than buying depth, wasting money on that. We don't need that anymore. Milan is the type of team that could use, 2, 3, 4 quality players to take us to the next level. We do not need to buy depth pieces anymore. Our starters who are doing okay can become our depth, and if they want to leave, fine, you sell them, then you actually buy depth. But for right now, I think that's the way we go. If we switch to a 3-4-1-2, which may fit us better, I say we do a couple things. You keep Teo as that wing back, which in my opinion, this is his ideal spot. He's going to shine here like crazy because he's a fantastic attacker and an average defender. Dalot you could keep once again for a cut price if we decide to stay with him there. Then you would have Romagnoli as your left center back, which I think he's going to do very, very well there with the extra covering. Because if somebody does get in behind him with speed, then he's going to have Kyer there to help out, or whoever we're going to have there. I do think that you put Kyer in the center, and then you put Fikayo Tomori as a right center back, which is going to allow a lot of movement from our midfield and from guys like Calabria on the right wing back. So that kind of defensive structure there I think would be great for us. And then you have Kessie and then Bennacer Tonali in the midfield. Same guys you're looking at. Pobega as a backup. Lokonga maybe as a vice Kessie would be a good option for us, I think. And then for that right wing back slot, yes, you could still have Dalot there, who I think he would do better as a right wing back than as a right back. But I think that looking at a guy like Manuel Lazzari from Lazio would be absolutely excellent. He's played fantastic. He's incredibly fast. He can play as a side back or a winger or a side mid. So that would be a really good option for us to look at for that right wing back spot to deputize for Calabria. He is good enough by far to start, so that might be the only issue is you're going to have 2 starting guys at that right wing back spot, but somebody that I was kind of interested in. Once again, you could go with the other option that I was thinking of would be Paulo Giglione. He delivers a great cross and it would be a very reasonably priced backup for Calabria. The number 10 role here, if you keep Hakan, great. If you don't, they're still the same options. You got Zaccagni, you got Castrovilli. Those are who I would consider there. And then you've got backups, which I think you can maybe start training Hauga to become attacking mid, as he has played there before for Bodo Glimt before he was with us. And I think that actually might fit him better. He's not very fast, so he doesn't really burn his man off of the wings, but he's very smart. He's technical, has a good shot, has good vision. So that kind of sets to me as more of an attacking mid, although we'll have to see how he does in the middle of the pitch. I think it could be a very interesting adaptation for him, and I would be excited to see it. Up top, nothing changes. I still think that you pick up a guy like a Memphis Depay, or you can pick up Sergio Aguero. One of those two would fit fantastically at that kind of second striker role. And then you have either Belotti, Scamacca, or Vlahovic, and then their trading time with Ibra. And that gives us a very, very solid team. Once again, it's really not a lot of investment. It's the same things. It's Tomori, it's your attacking mid spot if Hakan leaves, and then it's your striker, and then Depay or Aguero would be on a free, so it's just salary. So those are very, very reasonable options for us, and you're adding 3 starters to your list. So I think that's excellent for us going forward. Those are my 2 options. Let me know what you guys think. A bit of a longer update this week, but a lot of stuff is going on. It's a very delicate time for Milan, and so we'll see what happens in the future here. But really, Pioli is going to need to step up big time. And in my opinion, if he is unable to change things up, then it's just going to be too late for us, because I don't really want to be playing a game of catch-up. I don't think we're going to do great if we lose 4th place and try to come back into it, because recently us playing against the big teams has been going very, very poorly, as they know what we do now. A lot of these other good managers understand our 4-2-3-1. They understand that our wingers are not that good unless it's Rebic in, which he's barely been playing. And they're not going to do anything besides try to cross to Ibra. So if you just put strong markers on them, and then you make sure that they can't cut inside too easily, that's all they're going to do is look for a cross. So we don't have a guy like a Chiesa who can cut inside and make darting runs and give them something to worry about. We don't have that. We don't have somebody to punish the space in behind like a Hakimi for Inter, so to say. We don't really have that on that side. Our right is very, very weak. Even with Salamakers in, it's just very weak. So I think overall, a easy solution would be a form switch to the 4-3-1-2, which is what I've definitely suggested. Ideally, the 3-man back line works perfectly for us, but I get it if people don't want to change to a 3-man back line right now at the season. At least try the 4-3-1-2 in training. See how it goes. Give the teams a different look, and that way you're not forced to play a Krunic out wide and Castillo and Salamakers at right wing. Just eliminate that for the time being. tighten things up, give us some more structured midfield, and see what happens. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts and comments below. And as always, Forza Milan.